part clay. So now Daniel is going to interpret this dream for Nebuchadnezzar. He told him what the dream was. Now he's going to tell him the interpretation. Skip down to verse 36. Go ahead and read.
This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king.
So, this dream has really had to do with 4 world ruling dynasties and the kingdom that was to follow, which is the kingdom of God. The kingdom that Jesus came preaching about, that he did all them parables about, when he said the kingdom of God is like unto this, and it's like unto that, and it's like unto that kingdom. The one that Jesus came telling you about. Not some good feeling in your heart, but governments. That's what we are dealing with here. Go ahead and read.
Thou, O king, art the king of kings.
He said, now you are Nebuchadnezzar. You are the king. You the king of Babylon. And you are the king of kings. And where did you get your kingdom from, Nebuchadnezzar? Go ahead and read.
For the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom.
You didn't do it on your own, even though Nebuchadnezzar thought for a time that he did, until the Lord knocked him down and make him eat grass like an ox, so that he may know that the God of heaven, he set up king and he put him down. So Daniel, he said, God of heaven gave you this kingdom, Nebuchadnezzar. And you are this head of gold, because the image was made of gold and silver and brass and iron and clay. Go ahead and read on, brother.
For the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory.
Go ahead.
And whosoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven, hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all.
Now he gave him to Nebuchadnezzar, and guess who else he gave it to? He gave it to Nebuchadnezzar's son, and Nebuchadnezzar's son's son, and he got him today. If you don't think he got him today, you try to go fishing without going down there to Nebuchadnezzar's son without a license. Go down there and get a license from him to get them fish that God put in the sea that he made. Them God fishes. He made this lake. But guess what? He put it in my hand, and you cannot go out there and get you none unless you get permission from me. You come down here and ask me, can you go out there and fish? Go out there and hunt the animals that God made and put on the land that he made. Why? Because he put them in Nebuchadnezzar's hand and Nebuchadnezzar's son and his son's son until the very time of his end comes. And it's still in Nebuchadnezzar's son's hand to this very day. Go ahead. What verse out?
End of 38.
Go ahead and read.
Thou art this head of gold.
He said, now Nebuchadnezzar, you are this head of gold. In other words, you are the first kingdom that was represented by this head of gold. Go ahead and read on.
And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee.
Now he said, after thee shall arise another kingdom that is inferior to thee, and that is the Medes and the Persians. Go ahead and read. That's number 2. Go ahead and read.
And another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth.
And then he said, a third kingdom of brass that shall bear rule over all of the earth, and that is number 3. Go ahead. That is the Greeks. Go ahead and read on.
And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron.
And he said, and then there was a fourth kingdom, and that is the Roman Empire. And that is number 4. We're going to get back to this in a little while. Let's go now to Daniel chapter 5. We began reading at verse 18. Tell you what happened with Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom. Daniel 5, and we are going to begin reading at verse 18. 5 and 18. 5 and 18. Nebuchadnezzar, he died. Then the kingdom was passed on to his son. And this is what his son did, because before Nebuchadnezzar died, he went down into Jerusalem. And he tore it up. He tore up the temple that the Lord had Solomon built, took Israel into bondage. And not only when he tore up the temple, all them vessels that Solomon had put in the temple that was made of gold and all of that, he took them back and put them in the house of his God. Now his son is, Nebuchadnezzar passed on, his son is, he has risen up, and he has become king of Babylon now. Now what he's done is, he done set up a banquet now. And he is drinking out of the vessels that came out of the house of the Lord. Let's start reading here at verse 18. Then I want you to skip down to verse 22. Verse 18, then skip to verse 22. Okay, go ahead and read.
O thou king, the most The Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father a kingdom, and majesty, and glory, and honor.
Now he said, Belshazzar, because that was his name, Belshazzar. He said, O thou king, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father a kingdom, and majesty, and glory, and honor. Skip down to verse 22 now. Go ahead and read.
And thou his son, O Belshazzar, has not humbled thine heart, though thou knewest all this.
He said, now you knew all about what happened. Go ahead and read on.
But hast lifted up thyself against the Lord of heaven. And they have brought the vessels of his house before thee. And thou and thy lords, thy wives, and thy concubines have drunk wine in them. And
now they were sitting around and they was banqueting and all of that. Then Belshazzar, all of a sudden, he got drunk. And he said, well, go get them vessels that was brought out of the house of the Lord and bring them in here. And we're going to drink our wine and all of that out of these vessels. You know, and the Lord said, you have risen yourself up against me. These are sacred vessels. They were not meant to be parted with. Now here you are, you're going to drink out of these vessels and you're going to honor some other gods, the gods of gold and silver and all of that. I'm going to deal with you, Belshazzar. Go ahead and read.
And thou hast praised the gods of silver and gold, of brass, iron, wood, and stone, which see not, nor hear, nor know, and the God in whose hand thy breath is, and whose are all thy ways, hast thou not glorified.
Go ahead.
Then was the part of the hand sent from him, and this writing was written.
Go ahead.
And this is the writing that was written. Many, Tekel Upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing. Many, God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it.
Now, you know, as they were sitting there drinking, all of a sudden a hand just came out of nowhere and started writing on the wall. You don't see nobody. You drunk, now here a hand just come out of nowhere and started writing on the wall. We didn't bother to read it, but it talked about how Belshazzar's knees just started knocking together. I was scared about you drunk, and all of a sudden a hand just started writing on the wall. Now he's telling the interpretation of what was written. He said, God have numbered your kingdom, Belshazzar, which is Babylon, and he has finished it. Go ahead, read on.
Tekel, thou art weighed in the balances, and art found wanting.
Now he said, I done weighed you in the balance, Belshazzar, and you have come up short. Whenever the Lord weigh you in the balance, one thing you don't want to do, you don't want to come up short. But Belshazzar, he got weighed in the balances, and he came up short. Go ahead and read on.
Perez, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians.
So now the thing have been passed on, Belshazzar, Babylon, have been passed on. Now it has been given to the Medes and the Persians. So that was number 2. Go ahead and read a little bit more though.
Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and put a chain of gold about his neck.
Go ahead.
And made a proclamation concerning him, that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom.
Go ahead.
And that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain. And Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old.
So now that ends the Babylonian Empire. Then what moved in next was the Medo-Persian Empire. Let's go now to Daniel chapter 8, and we'll pick it up at verse 1, and we're going to find out who this third kingdom is. Because the Lord named 3. You know, when he gave Daniel the interpretation of the dream, he named 4. But then, you know, he told him about the first one, and then he told him about the second one, then he told him about the third one, and then he said there would arise a 4th kingdom. Now we know who the first 2 are. First one was Babylon, the next one was the Medes and the Persians. Let's go now to Daniel chapter 8, begin reading at verse 1, 8 and 1. Go ahead, read.
In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar.
Now Belshazzar was reigning, and this time Daniel had the dream. First it was Nebuchadnezzar that had the dream. Now Daniel had the dream this time, and he's going to give us the interpretation of the dream. Go ahead, read on.
A vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel.
Go ahead.
After that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass, when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam.
Go ahead.
And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Uli. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the